on my personal account and the DMs are closed. I hope you guys enjoyed that melody. It's what I've been bumping lately, and whenever I hear it, my heart just sends waves of love into the atmosphere. Over the reality, you are the very, very special panelist for showing up. How you doing? Let's break the ice a little bit and get involved in this amazing discussion.
Oh no, we are not the only ones speaking. Oh good, the pipe G dial just came on. Hey Biga, how's everybody?
Hey,
Well,
I'm doing good. I see the pipe is here, but I won't accept the request. I want them to feel a bit tense.
no, I actually messaged him too. Bring him on. Come
He
on.
made me as a host feel tense. I can only return the favor. I'm joking. He's already up on stage.
Okay, I
Wait,
get it. I get it.
what's it called? Is it yesterday or the day before? We had a bit of a, shall we say, back and forth, right? Type thing on another space. So I think he's still feeling a bit sore from being outclassed on his knowledge of blockchain there. So it's okay. Don't worry.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. And please, I want you to know early on that I'm gonna play the devil's advocate. So that back and forth we had, I'm ready this time. Last time you caught me off guard in an arena that I'm not too knowledgeable on, but today, with my army here, I will not at all back down.
I'm
And
looking
of
forward
course,
to it.
yeah, please, please. And I think we can actually start. I'm very happy with us just being two panelists. This is a very intrinsic discussion, one which will change mobile gaming and mobile apps forever. And that's, of course, depending on how it plays out. To begin with, I'm sure arcaders are wondering Apple's ruling, and maybe we can start with that. I will put you over the reality on the spot to somewhat bring us up to speed to what this ruling is before we discuss on it, if you don't mind.
Man, it's not like this is in my wheelhouse. So anyway, hi, this is Digital Femme. Let me throw some purple hearts so you know who is talking behind the over the reality. I haven't really been following up on Apple's appeal, but apparently, and I know the Pipe G Dow, please feel free to chime in because I know you will. Apparently, Apple thought to like overturn some court ruling from Epic Games, like for their antitrust that said Apple must, I think, allow developers to include external links or buttons in their iOS apps. And they wanted to overturn that. They wanted to appeal that because Apple, and I'm doing air quotes here, um, you know how they really gatekeep, and it's really difficult for developers to have their apps approved in the iOS Play Store or whatever. And Apple's always saying, no, we got to do this because it's all about privacy and security. So we have to keep it within our own little Apple ecosystem. But I believe it got the Supreme Court overruled that. And they said, no, you must allow developers to include external links and buttons, and you must and that and so that they can be able to use third party payments. Did I fuck that up?
No, you did really, really great. You've given us the essential backbone, the timeline. Let me also throw it over to the pipe down to maybe fill in the slots that you haven't. But to me, you've made me understand what's happening here. The pipe, do you have anything to add so that our arcaders can be knowledgeable on what we're about to discuss?
Sure, I had no clue about any of this, so I've asked Grok. So I'll tell you what Grok has said here, right? Apple is now, as Crypto Fem, Digital Fem, excuse me, said Apple is now prohibited from charging commissions on purchases made through external links. The company cannot restrict developers from including buttons or links to external payment options or discourage users from warning messages. Judge Rogers referred Apple to and its vice president of finance, Alex Roman, to the federal prosecutors for a criminal contempt investigation. Ooh, citing outright lies under oath, so someone could go to prison, right? Potentially. So it allows developers like Amazon and Spotify to update apps that directly with direct payment links, potentially reducing costs for consumers. Uh, for example, Kindle now includes Get Book button, and Spotify offers free trial options. Epic Games plans to return to the Fortnite. Epic Games plans to return Fortnite to the App Store. Right. So Apple, I think they, in terms of also purchases as well on their App Store, I think they take it like a 40% or commission or something, 30% commission from all sales on their App Store in general. Right? It's very, very restrictive. And I think in the States, most people actually have iPhones in the States. It's not a premium product like in other parts of the world. So the majority of Americans actually have iPhones. So Apple effectively has a monopoly in the States. So this is what antitrust is about. For the uninitiated, antitrust this was brought in by President Teddy Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt, he broke up the trusts. So Standard Oil and such in the early 20th century, about 100 years ago or so, or just over, basically breaking up monopoly practices. So they'd have a big Standard Oil basically controlled all the oil in the States. They put it in the trust, and the trust owned Standard Oil, and they could just basically determine what the oil price was, right? So that's what antitrust is, and because Apple within their app store have a monopoly, and because most Americans, this is my conjecture, have iPhones, is like, hey, you guys have a monopoly. You guys can just basically decide what you want and not allowing competitive practices, right? So yeah, it is a better choice for consumers because having to pay that the having because if Apple charges 30 or 40% commission on all app store sales, right, from there, they pass that the developers pass that on to the consumers. That makes it more expensive, which is not fair. So yeah, I surmise that that's what this is about.
Did you read all that from Grok?
So the second bit, no, the second bit is what I already knew already.
All right. I know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. I just wanted to call you out.
No. So I know about Standard Oil and Teddy Roosevelt and that kind of stuff. I'm a politics and history buff, so I'm aware of that stuff. And I also know about Apple being most people having Apple iPhones in the States.
That brings us up to date on what the ruling is, Arcaders. And I want you guys to let me know if you guys are using an Apple device or an iOS in the comment section. But just to sum up what our great two honorable panelists have said, basically Epic took Apple to court, and that is because Apple was engaging in bad practices, as if nobody knew that. Monopolistic, that's a better term, thanks buddy, practices, and it somewhat became uncovered that that statement is true, and what they ought to do is remove restrictions from apps which are connecting users to pay for in-app purchases externally outside of the app store. Okay, I hope that brings us up to speed. Another good thing I like is the pipe already somewhat started hinting that this is good news. Like I said, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here. It may appear on the surface level that this is amazing because devs no longer have to pass that cost on to consumers, nor do they have to get the products a little bit less competitive due to this 30% charge. But we'll get to uncover that. Let me first ask, and we'll start with you over the reality. Why is this good news? Do you consider it good news at all?
Well, okay. So when you read the headline, and Apple, the big A, you're like, yay! Finally, the centralized, monopolized App Store is finally coming down, and it's a good thing for developers. So on one side, it's fantastic because it really heralds um, a new mindset in terms of what gaming is going to look like for the future. Because before, like Apple, Google, and all these other like large, I guess, entities, they've always kind of like gate kept um, their apps, and it really did injustice to the developers. So this is a huge thing, this overruling. It really signals a change, and it probably might make Google and other game developer studios or whatever entities rethink that. So in a way, Apple's kind of like being used not as a scapegoat, but as an example. But on the other hand, it's like, yay, like devs can now use third-party payments, and can attach like NFTs and all these like Web3 type of I guess things. However, it's not as easy as it seems. So I love that you're playing the devil's advocate, because when I first heard it, I'm like, oh my God, this is huge. This is like amazing. But it's not like black and white. There's still a lot of layers that need to be thought out. This is just a conversation. This is just something that, yes, Epic Games won, but there's a whole other conversation that needs to happen. And not only that, there's like privacy and security is huge. So when you are using third party payments, you know, like come on, back in the 90s, early 2000s, when you used WordPress plugins, right? They always said don't use WP plugins because that's like the gateway for, like for bugs and stuff like that. So let me just rethink. It's great that it's signaling a change the way games and apps are going to be handled. It's great because now developers have more freedom and empowerment. It's great because this brings more kind of like startups into the mix, in particular Web3 startups, Web3 payment systems, because now they can have like this doorway to the Web 2, like AAA or mobile gaming thing. So that's a great bridge. However, let's not be fooled, because there's still a lot of technical um, layers that need to be addressed. Because I'm telling you, when you are introducing any third party anything into the mix, it is like a wild, wild west. So definitely there's going to be regulations, definitely standards have to be in place. And what regulations and what standards, who knows? What platform, who knows? We're just kind of like, this is great, this news. Apple, unfortunately or fortunately, got like a slap in the on the wrist, but it still doesn't solve really anything. It's just still a big conversation we need to have in terms of privacy and security and all that stuff. Woohoo!
You are killing it.
Killing it.
Digital Femi, you said, right?
Femme for, I think it means
Fem.
women in French.
Ooh,
Woo woo
It
I
also
woo.
love
means
that. I love that.
it also means other things which I'm not going to
Oh
allude to
no,
here.
please, you never stopped saying anything before in public. What else does it mean, the pipe G?
I'm afraid this is my professional company profile, so we cannot. I
Oh yes,
cannot.
okay, okay, okay. Good call.
yeah,
Good call.
I really can't state such opinions here.
No, actually, what I love is that the pipe was coming at me, but now you two are going at it. So that saves me, because when the pipe is on your neck, there's a reason why he's called the pipe. He will squeeze your windpipe. Anyway, getting back to the discussion, I want to throw in the figure. In 2024 alone, Apple generated an estimated 28 billion. Yes, 28 billion in fees from developers alone. So when we say that this is good news for the industry, I can understand your take there over the reality, because all this was nothing but fees. What? That is a really shocking figure. But you go on further and you tell us that it's not that easy, which I agree, and which we will get into further on in this discussion. More so, you've touched on Web3 payment gateway systems, and that is really gonna bring us home to the message we want to deliver here. But before that, the pipe, you were very jolly after reading the news you read off Grok. Why you happy? Why is this good news? Everybody celebrated it without understanding what this actually implies. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts concerning this question, buddy.
So you just said it. I mean, the 23 billion just in fees, right? So there's a book called Techno Feudalism that I bought. I'm yet to read it, but I know what it's about. As I'm still finishing off another book. It's by Yanis Varoufakis. He's the former Greek finance minister. He's a technologist and economist, and he understands crypto and Web3 as well. Anyway, and you just type in Techno Feudalism on YouTube, and what he's saying is Apple, Amazon, Google, this is feudalism in the 21st century. Yeah, so we are cloud serfs. Yeah, they build these platforms because it's iOS is what people are interacting with. Yes, they have the device, but it's the operating system. That's actually what Apple is really about, right? So we are just serfs, and you have the feudal lord, which is Apple, that completely controls everything. So it's not a marketplace. They control what you see, what you don't see. You know, it's not like you walking down the road and you can choose what you want, what shop you want to go into. They own the sky, the sea, the road, everything that you see they control. So it's actually not a market. It is a cloud fiefdom which they completely control, and they extract cloud rents, just like the feudal lords did. So I don't know if do you know what I mean by feudalism and feudal lords? Okay,
Oh
yeah.
man, yeah,
So
I'm a black guy, so you take me into some really, really dark past and history
yes.
that I don't want to remember. But yeah, I
Ah,
do know what you mean.
yes. I'm an African, so yes. Feudalism continued in Africa after it ended in Europe. Yeah, they just transferred it. Anyway, uh, so so the so so with the feudal lord, they get the peasants, which is us, to farm the land, and they come and collect most of the crops, and the peasants just to keep get to keep a tiny little bit which they keep for themselves, right? So the developers are like the sheriff who comes and collects the what the peasants have produced, and gives most of it to the feudal lord, and he takes his cut from that, right? But the feudal lord doesn't know you, doesn't give a fuck who you are, right? So so because so what Giannis is saying is that we have come to there's no more capitalism. We're back to feudalism, but it is a feudal system which is controlled by these cloud capitalists, these cloudalists that control everything that we interact with, and all they do is just extract rents now. They don't even innovate anymore, right? They've already got the IP. They don't even manufacture the phones. The phones are manufactured in China. They just own the IP, and they own the cloud infrastructure, and they extract rents. That's what they do. They're not innovating and producing anything anymore, right? So I think this situation is the courts and the people just realizing that, hey guys, these guys actually they own and control everything. It's not a society or feudal society, because in the feudal society, yeah, the aristocrats, the landowners, They were the rich guys. Yeah, they owned everything. And then when capitalism started during the Great Industrial Revolution, you had capital markets, right? So you had the industrialists, the captains of industry versus the aristocracy, and the capitalists won, and they're the ones that got all the money. But now we're coming back to a new form of land owning aristocracy. The land is the cloud. Yeah, and that's what Apple controls. So sorry to be long winded about this. So I think this is a good blow against the techno feudal system. Yeah, because there is now more competition, and they don't just get to extract rents just for not doing anything.
Please go in over the reality, please. The floor is yours.
Oh, I was just gonna say, guess who our third speaker is? Open Loot at Big Time Thomas is down there. So let's send him the mic.
Actually, Open Loop was here earlier. I shot him an invite to speak. He seems he's meditating, to put it politely, before he joins the discussion. It's somewhat his flow. Open Loop is not new here. He always, stays as a listener. Then when he comes up, he just comes in to clean everything clear off the plate. So Open Loot, I've shot you the invite, but of course at your own time. I like
All
this.
right. We respect that. I respect that. You do you. You do you, Open Loot. I mean, G the pipe, G Dow. You just gave like a what's it called? My God, like a past history on my grade 10 history with feudal systems that I did not really like. But yeah, you can count on the pipe G Dow to do that. So okay, so what Apple ruling means for Web3? Let's tackle that. What does Apple ruling mean for Web3? Bigger. What do you think?
No, no, no. You're not gonna put me on the spot. I only prepared the questions. So I have no idea. I'm here getting educated just as the other arcaders are. And that's in fact our next question. So I love that we're already pivoting into how Web3 can seize this opportunity. I also want to shout out to The Pipe for granting us that great history into how economics has shaped society and into how the economic models have changed and shifted over time. Let me drop another very scary fact here. From my last readings, Apple is in the top five. I can't remember which particular position it's exactly landed on, but it is in the top five largest gaming companies without producing any game. So that whole taking rent talk that you gave us, The Pipe, hits home further when it's brought together with that quote. Can you guys just imagine this? And I understand that users are feeling very joyful over the fact that this massive giant with a lot of money, a lot of influence is finally brought down. I want to zoom in on this a little bit before we get into what this ruling means for Web3. So let me just ask first and foremost, beyond Web3, how can developers actually seize this opportunity? The court said, hey, Apple, you gotta stop sharing those really scary screens whenever an app links a user to pay through a web link, right? But how can we actually seize this opportunity? And of course, this also applies to Web3 developers, but how can we seize this opportunity before we start really discussing on what the ruling means for Web3? The Pipe, I see your hand up enthusiastically. Tackle this for us. And then I'll also share my opinion since Digital Feme has also put me on the spot. Then, of course, over the reality, we'd love to hear from you too. But please, The Pipe, kick us off with another history lesson.
Thanks. I'll give you my two sats. So what? So even if a developer is now allowed to use a third-party payment system, right? The payment system that they're using will still charge them a fee. Stripe and Venmo and whoever it is, right? So what it could mean is that the third parties the devs are using to make payments, they are then getting that revenue. So you're just transferring that fee extraction to third parties that are not the developers themselves. So I think what it also allows is that for the developers to actually create their own payment rails, their own payment systems, which means that because long term, the fees, like just from an investing perspective, the fees that you're paying on exchanges for trading crypto and stocks, that can take up 25% of the portfolio of the value of your portfolio over its lifetime. You might not feel it per transaction, but it adds up. And it's like if we just spend time and money developing our own system, we wouldn't have paid these fees, right? So now the smart ones would say, you know what, rather than just integrating Stripe or whatever it is, if we can make our own and we can save on fees for payment processing. So that's what this has opened this up for. Not just third-party payment methods, but actually first party from a developer perspective that they can make their own and save on the fees. So that's what I see potentially. Yeah.
I love that take because I did say I'm gonna play the devil's advocate, and this is a really, really beautiful take that makes me somewhat think. Open Loot, appreciate you coming on stage. I believe you joined us when we also had a talk about tools.
Hey,
And
Bigger.
how you doing, buddy? How you doing? I want to set you up with
How
a
are you,
really good
brother?
question. I'm
Nice.
feeling
Yeah.
blessed. I'm feeling so happy.
Nice. What are you happy about? What are you happy about? Tell me what's going on.
I'm happy about you being here. And I just want to poke
You're a sweetheart.
your brains a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, when you were talking, I already was thinking about everything that's going on right now in the market and the world. Um, I do think that what happened to Apple right now. It's pretty amazing. I don't think it's only not only for Web3. I think it like in general it's a major step for any type of centralized monopoly strategies that company makes. You giving room to other companies to join in and actually have their share of it, and put their product on a major company like Apple. It's pretty amazing, and as they're backing crypto in some way, that's amazing for our market as well. It gives us strong backdoors and legitimacy, and it's all about that in the world that we live right now. It's people, you know, mouth to mouth marketing telling everyone that they can trust this and there's no risk involved and all that. Even though it's the case, right? If we're talking about Web3 and trading coins and all that, they're all aware. But since they are backing stable coins, Bitcoin, um, and and all that, it's pretty amazing. Pretty excited to see what's going on um, in that side. There's also I saw that other companies were, of course, right after that happened, um, also are reaching out to some platforms in Web3, just kind of pinching here and there, trying to see where they could put a little bit of effort in those. So I already see some movement going on, and I think that's pretty amazing.
I mean, I don't disagree that this is good news. I just want to advance the discussion here. And one of the points the pipe has mentioned is it allows for developers to create their own payment rails. And over the reality, just to bring you into this discussion a little bit, is this something the current climate of gaming wants to even consider at the moment? We're looking at a macroeconomic environment that's very challenging. We're looking at VC funding somewhat being way, way more selective. are we not wanting to actually outsource this task rather than create it in-house? That's point A that I want to somewhat push back on what the pipe and open loot has mentioned here. And another thing that you also touched on over the reality, just to mention before I hand you over the microphone, is the Wild West phrase. That has actually stuck to my mind. If I'm gonna be paying for something on a web link, that can turn very bad very, very fast. And one thing the Apple payment gateway did was somewhat fight fraud, right? So let me just play the devil's advocate here a little bit, and I want to hear your takes on this, if you don't mind.
Sure, 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 sure. So, where do we start? I mean, okay. So we all know that this new ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Apple's appeal. Um, like I said in the beginning, it really signals a new era in terms of a mindset on how we handle, or developers handle, or the gaming industry handles itself, especially when we are now in the pretty much mid thick of Web3, right? So we all know, what's his name?